Hi, I'm Ashley and welcome to my channel. Today I'm going to be sharing my 10 favorite books of 2023. And this list is really hard to make because I read 85 books last year and so many of them were amazing. But I managed to narrow it down to 10 and I'm going to go through those starting at number 10 and making my way up to number 1. So for number 10, I kind of cheated because I have 3 books at number 10. And this is because most of the time I read fantasy and fantasy is my favorite genre. But every once in a while I'll read a contemporary romance. But it takes a lot more for contemporary romance to impress me and wow me than it does for fantasy. And so all 3 of these books did that. They were amazing and they blew me away, so I wanted to give them a spot on this list. So the first of these 3 books is The Dead Romantics by Ashley Poston. This is an adult contemporary romance with a supernatural twist because our main character Florence can see ghosts. Florence is a ghostwriter for a popular romance author, and at the start of the book, her old editor has just retired and she has received a new editor. So she has a meeting with her new editor and she needs an extension on the book that she is currently writing, but he refuses to give it to her. And then not too long after that, she receives a call from back home and she learns that her father has passed away. So she heads back home to attend his funeral. But when she gets there, she ends up running into her new editor again, but now he's a ghost. And so the story follows Florence trying to help her new editor while also trying to cope with the death of her father. And of course, along the way, she starts to fall in love with her new editor. And this book was also super cute and sweet and also did a good job with dealing with the topic of loss. So the other 2 contemporary romances are actually ones that I borrowed from the library. So I don't have physical copies of them yet, but I will at some point be adding them to my collection. So the first one is Part of Your World by Abby Jimenez. And this is one that I saw popping up on Bookstagram last year and then again this year. And so I was in the mood for some contemporary romance at the time when it started popping up again, so I decided to check it out. I'm so glad I did because it was absolutely amazing. This one follows city girl and ER doctor Alexis Montgomery, and one night she is on her way home from a funeral, but her car ends up stuck in a ditch near a small town. And one of the inhabitants of the small town, Daniel, ends up towing her car out of the ditch for her. And then she ends up meeting Daniel again when she stops at a bar in the town to get something to eat. And she ends up going home with him where he makes her grilled cheese and they end up spending the night together. But then she wakes up and she panics when she finds his license and learns that he is actually 10 years younger than her. And so she runs away back to the city. But then she finds herself still thinking about him. So she ends up going back there and they end up having a relationship, but she just kind of thinks of it as a fling at first because she doesn't think it's going to work because they're both from 2 different worlds. However, over time that she realizes that the relationship is turning into something more and that scares her. But Daniel is determined to show her that her relationship can work despite the fact that they're from 2 completely different worlds. And so this story, like the previous one, was super cute and sweet, and I really loved the relationship between Daniel and Alexis. Also, it had some super cute and quirky animal side characters as well. There is a cute and lovable dog named Hunter, a baby goat in pajamas named Chloe, and a mischievous pig named Kevin Bacon. So the third contemporary romance book was Undercover Bromance by Lisa K. Adams, and this is book 2 in the Bromance Book Club series. So each of these books follows a member of this book club that made up of guys that read romance books to try to understand women better, and then they apply what they learned from these books to their relationships in real life. So the second book follows Mac, who is a member of the book club, and this book was just so hilarious. It made me laugh so much, and I also loved the romance in this one. And the romance in this one definitely had enemies to lovers vibes because the love interest for Mac doesn't really like him first as much and holds a grudge against him because of something. And I love this one so much that I end up buying the rest of the series, and I can't wait to read those, and I hope they're just as good as the second one was. So book number 9 is Emily Wilde's Encyclopedia of Fairies by Heather Fawcett, and this is a book that was really popular this year and a lot of people were talking about, so I picked it up and I ended up loving it. So this one follows Emily Wilde, who is a researcher of fairies and she is writing an encyclopedia of fairies. And so at the start of this book, she has just gone to this small town that's pretty much in the middle of nowhere, and it's winter time. And she's gone there by herself with only her dog Shadow for company. And she plans to just do her research and not really talk to the townspeople because she is very much an introvert and she much rather have her head in a book than deal with anything social. However, her plans are kind of turned upside down when her colleague and rival Wendell Bamblebee ends up showing up. And he says he's there to help her with her research. And she kind of has mixed feelings about this because he is very much her opposite. He is very outgoing and very social, but he does end up staying. And so the story follows the two of them on their ventures, researching not only the fairies, but also bonding with the townspeople as well. And the thing that I loved about this book that made this book for me was the banter between Emily and Wendell. Banter was just perfect between the two of them, and I loved it so much. And this book has like a little bit of everything. It's a historical fantasy, but it also has a little bit of romance, and it's also cozy, but at times it's not cozy at all. And I really like the depiction of the fairies in this because they're very much the dark, sinister type of fairies and very much not the Disney type fairies. Also, another thing I really liked about this book was you have the grumpy sunshine dynamic in this one, but it's kind of turned on its head because Emily is the grumpy one, and usually it's the female characters that are the sunshine ones and the male characters that are the grumpy ones. But in this one, Emily is the grumpy one and Wendell is the sunshine one, and I thought that dynamic worked really well in this. And also, speaking of animal characters, I adored Emily's dog Shadow in this as well. So book number 9 is Forging Silver into Stars by Bridget Khmer. And this is a spin-off series to the Cursebreaker series. So Forging Silver into Stars takes place in the same world as the Cursebreaker series. And one of the main characters in this one is a minor character that was introduced in the Cursebreaker series, but there are also 2 new main characters in this one as well. So this was one of the first books that I read back in 2023. And the thing that really made me love this was the romance between 2 characters in this one. And I love seeing their relationship develop, and I love that it was the type of relationship that brought out the best in each other. And there's also a strong sister relationship in this one too that I also very much enjoyed. And another thing that I really liked about this book is that we do get to see characters from the Cursebreaker series in this one again as well. And in case you're wondering, I would say that you don't necessarily have to read the Cursebreaker series in order to read this one, but I think it would help you develop an attachment to the characters in that one and to the world, and that would probably help you enjoy this one even more. So for book number 7, I actually cheated a little bit and put in a whole series at number 7, and that was the Dark Artifices series by Cassandra Clare. So I've been wanting to read these for a while, and I'm so happy that I finally did in 2023, and I just love these so much. Book 1, Lady Midnight, made my heart happy. Book 2, Lord of Shadows, broke my heart. And then Book 3, Queen of Air and Darkness, put my heart back together again. So I just loved everything about these books. I loved the characters, the main characters, the minor characters, the relationships between them all, the story and the plot. I loved everything. And this series may now be my new favorite Shadowhunter series. Before this, the Infernal Devices was my favorite, but it has been a while since I read the Infernal Devices, and so I feel like I would have to reread that to say for sure that this is my new favorite series, but regardless, I love this series. So number 6 is What the River Knows by Isabel Ibanez. And this one was very much a surprise for me because I didn't really know much going into it before I picked it up, and I read this one in December, so not too long ago, and this one just captivated me. I loved it so much and it was so much fun. So our main character in this one is Inez, and she lives in Argentina, but her parents are archaeologists, so they spend most of their time in Egypt. And she's always wanted to go with them to Egypt, but they always refuse to bring her. So at the start of the story, she is stuck at home in Argentina waiting to receive a letter from them. However, when she does receive a letter, it's only to find out that they are dead. So now she is determined to find out what happened to them. So without anyone's permission, she just ends up heading off to Egypt. She just leaves a note for her cousins and aunt to find, saying that she's left, and she sends a note to her uncle because her uncle is also an archaeologist in Egypt, telling him that she is coming. So she gets there and she expects her uncle to meet her there, but instead his assistant, a young Englishman named Whit, ends up meeting her there, and he tells her that he has a boat ticket for her to head right back to Argentina. Of course, though, she's come all this way, and she's determined to find out what happened to her parents, so she refuses to leave, and she ends up running away from Whit and finding her way to the hotel where her uncle stays and where her parents used to stay when they were in Egypt. And so this story follows her trying to figure out exactly what happened to her parents, and also there is a romance, of course, between her and Whit, and I just love this book so much. It was so much fun. I love the angsty romance between Whit and Inez, and also there is a magic system in here that is just so whimsical and wholesome feeling. Like, I never thought I'd say that about a magic system, but this magic system is just so very wholesome. And then the epilogue in this book, I read it and I was like, what does that even mean? So now I need to read the second one like right away, right now. So I would definitely recommend this if you like YA historical fantasy books and also angsty romance. So number 5 is One Dark Window by Rachel Gillig. And this is another one that was popular this year and that a lot of people were talking about, and this one did not disappoint. It is a gothic fantasy book about a girl named Elspeth who lives with a monster in her head, and the story follows her teaming up with a highwayman to gather these magical cards. And so I love the romance in this. It was both angsty and also very cute and precious. And I loved all the characters in here, the main characters, the side characters, and the bonds that they all shared. And also I found the magic system to be very unique and interesting. And also this ends on a horrible cliffhanger that made me want to pick up the second book right away. So book number 4 is A Very Secret Society of Irregular Witches by Sangu Mandana. And this is a very cute and heartwarming cozy fantasy. And it follows Mika Moon, who is a witch who lives in Britain, but she has to keep her identity of being a witch a secret. She can't tell anyone. The only other people that know that she is a witch are other witches that she meets up with sometimes, but it's also a rule that they can't hang out too much. So that kind of leaves her feeling lonely, and she's never really had a place or people that have felt like family or home. So in order to deal with her loneliness a little bit, she started a YouTube channel where she shares her witch side, but of course it's the internet and YouTube, so she thinks she is safe and that no one will think that she is actually a witch. However, one day she receives a message from someone saying that, I know that you are a witch and I would like you to come teach these 3 young girls who are also witches magic. And of course she is very skeptical about this message and this offer, but she ends up going to check it out anyways, and she learns that it is actually legit. And so she ends up teaching these 3 young girls magic, and along the way she finds a place and people to call home and family. And among those people, there is a young man named Jamie who she ends up developing feelings in a relationship with, and their relationship is very much the grumpy sunshine trope, and it was everything. And she's the sunshiny one, he's the grumpy one. And there is a little bit of drama in here, but mostly the whole book is just super heartwarming and endearing. I also listened to this for the first time on audiobook, and I highly recommend the audiobook if you like audiobooks. And I loved it so much that I got myself a physical copy as well. So we are down to the top 3. So number 3 is another book that I borrowed from the library, and I haven't gotten myself a copy yet, but I will eventually add it to my library because obviously I loved it since it's at number 3. And that is Lonely Castle in the Mirror by Mizuki Sugimura. And this book is a middle grade, and it is translated from Japanese to English. So our main character is middle schooler Kokoro, and Kokoro is in 7th grade, but she only went to school for a month before she stopped going because of bullying. And at the start of the book, she has been home for almost a month, and she just doesn't know how to deal with the trauma of being bullied. And her mother has been trying to help her, but Kokoro just doesn't know how to explain it to her and how to express her feelings to her mom. And so one day when she is home alone in her bedroom, her mirror starts glowing and she reaches out to touch it and ends up pulling her into a world where there is a castle and a girl in a wolf mask. And there are also other children there as well, and the girl in the wolf mask tells them that they have been chosen to play a game where if they find a key, they can have any wish that they want granted. So it is currently May, and she says they have until the end of March to find this key. If they don't find the key before then the castle will just close down and they'll never be able to go back to the castle. And so at first, Kokoro is kind of hesitant about going to the castle, but she ends up going back, and she actually ends up meeting and bonding with the other kids that are there, and she learns that they all have some sort of trauma of their own as well. And so why this book has like the fantasy aspect of going to another world is also just very much a story about these kids who are going through tough times and how their bonds with each other help them to overcome these tough times. And I just found this book so heartwarming and also heartbreaking at the same time. And I was rooting for Kokoro and the other kids the entire time and hoping that they would be able to overcome their traumas and just be able to live happy lives as kids. So book number 2 is The Night Circus by Erin Morgenstern. So I've heard a lot about this one before picking it up, and I was a little nervous because it seemed to be one of those books that people either love or hate. But I ended up loving this book, and I just loved everything about it. I loved the characters, the world, the writing style, the way it was put together, just everything. So the story itself centers around a duel between two young magicians, Celia and Marco, and with their stage being the Night Circus, but it is also so much more than that. It is also a story of the people who created the circus and how the circus came to be, of the performers that call the circus home, of the attendees that take part in the circus, and also the overall enchanted and magical atmosphere of the circus. And so I just loved reading about all these different elements of the circus, and I also love the way this was set up because we have chapters from the performers' point of views, from the people who created the circus point of views, from Celia and Marco's point of views, from people in the future, and also the point of view of the attendees as well. And I just loved how those all joined together on a whole. And so I just really love this book, and I will definitely be rereading it at some point. Now for my favorite book of 2023, and that book was Sea Sparrow by Christian Cashore. So this is book 5 of one of my favorite series, the Graceling series. And this series takes place in a world where there are these abilities called graces, and these abilities range from the mundane, such as your grace making you a really good cook, to something more extraordinary like mind reading. And you can tell if someone has a grace because they'll have 2 different colored eyes. And so the first book in this series, Graceling, follows Casca, who has a grace, and it pretty much follows her story. And then the second book follows a different character's story. And then in the third book, you follow Bitterblue, who is actually a minor character from Graceling. And then the fourth book is actually the first book that has multiple perspectives, and is also the first book where you have a main character who was a main character in the previous book. So Bitterblue is the main character in that one, but you also have some other main characters as well. And then in this one, Hava is our main character, and she was a minor character in Winterkeep. And she is also a Graceling, so this book is very much her story, and as such it's very character focused, and it really takes its time letting us get to know Hava and the world she's in and the people that are around her. And as such, this is the first book in the series that is written from first person perspective. All the other books are written from third person, and I think that suits this book really well since it is all about Hava and getting into her mind. But since I've read so many books in this world, it just, whenever I read one of these, I feel very much like I'm coming home and I'm reuniting with old friends. And I just loved getting to see Hava's story and getting to see her figure out her life and exactly what she wants out of her life. And also I love that we got to see older characters from previous books as well. And one of my other favorite things about this book is that there are blue baby foxes, and these blue baby foxes are just so cute and adorable, but they also give our characters a sense of hope and purpose during tough times as well, because a part of this is also a survival story. And I definitely recommend this series if you like YA fantasy books with characters that have magical abilities. So those are my 10 favorite books of 2023. Let me know down below if we share any of the same favorites, or if not, just let me know what was one of your favorite books of 2023. Thank you so much for watching. Until next time, bye!